Hello, SpongeGex here for another episode of Video Games Worth Taking Your Time, Banjo Tooie. And here we are at Jolly Roger's Lagoon, a very unique level in the game. This was always one of my favorite levels in the game. I just love the scenery in this. Not only is the surface really cool, but even the underwater segments are very memorable. I love the music. Let's head into the bar, Jolly's. Yeah, I remember, this part was very risque for its time. This, was, implied to be a gay bar, apparently, as you can see by the menu, and Jolly, he has a very flamboyant personality, and his supposed girlfriend kind of looks like a drag queen, so... And all the innuendos in the dialogue. Grab a sailor knife. Oh boy. I'm not even gonna touch what she just said. Oh, it makes you wonder if they were to remake this game, how would they have to change this scene? They'd probably be afraid that they'd offend people today, I'll bet. And here we can find the original intended villain for the game. Back when the game was called Project Dream, there was supposed to be a pirate captain named Captain Black Eye, and he made a cameo in this game, remorsing over how he was once supposed to star in a video game. Yeah, I'll admit, this part confused me as a kid, but after learning about it, I thought this scene was really clever. Surprises me that Conker's Bad Fur Day didn't really do anything like that. It didn't make any references to the fact that it was supposed to be a kid's game once. The stuff that was scrapped. Originally, Conker's archenemy was supposed to be like an evil Acord, and he even had an evil doppelganger named Honker, as seen in the Game Boy Color game, Conker's Pocket Tales, and it was believed that a lot of that stuff was supposed to be carried over into the N64 game. But, we'll never know, because the game never came out, and I really wish it would somehow. I'll never understand why they canceled it. They canceled it with the excuse that it was too much like Banjo Kazooie, but if you ask me, that's one thing I wish Conker's Bad Fur Day was more like. I wish the gameplay was more like Banjo Kazooie. It's like if it had the gameplay of Banjo Kazooie but kept its crazy charm and you know, like its raunchiness that made the game well known, it's like, yeah, I think that would have made a great blend. But the gameplay, like, I love Conker's Bad Fur Day, but honestly, the gameplay can get very repetitive. There's a lot of parts that I hate going through whenever replaying the game. I like how that Gruntilda prize you saw up there was actually a little background object in the first Banjo-Kazooie game. Back when you first did the Grunty's Furnace Fund, that was one of the prizes on the prize stand. Of course, Banjo-Kazooie didn't pick it, and so it ended up in that pawn shop. Nobody wants it still. Yeah, I thought, like, I thought that was strange how inside this version of Mumbo's Hut there was like a secret passage that you can only open up by shooting a grenade egg in it, and I remember that got really confusing whenever I'd visit Mumbo Jumbo and try leaving. It's like, I'd always accidentally take the wrong door to get out. I think Captain Blubber was originally in here. He was a minor character in the first Banjo-Kazooie in Treasure Trove Cove, and let's head to what makes this level very special, the underwater segments. So originally you had to get Mumbo to cast a spell to allow you to breathe underwater without losing any air. And this is a level where you learn how to swim in first person, shoot in first person, and a few other underwater abilities. So this really makes this a very different kind of underwater level compared to like Clanker's Cavern from Banjo-Kazooie. Even the transformation you get in this level is really cool. Now, one thing I really love about this is the music. Grant Kirkhope did a really good job, and I'd really love to see a remake of this game, see how he could possibly top this. Hey, Squidward, take a chill pill. These tentacles are pesky. And you actually find the lost city of Atlantis. Now, if they were to remake this game, I would love to see them kind of redesign this place a little bit to make the buildings look a little more distinct. So I'll admit, when I first played this game, I got confused in exploring all these because so many of the buildings just kind of look similar. It's hard to tell like what's inside of them. So I'd appreciate it if like if they remade this game, like add some kind of like hieroglyphics on the side or some kind of hint at what lies in store. So that way it's easier to remember like which place is what, like when backtracking in this game. I remember this room kind of terrified me as a kid. It's because of these seaweed monsters. It's like when you, some of them just look like seaweed, but then you walk close to them and they attack you. I remember like what kind of freaked me out was like the high-pitched screech they made. I just remember that kind of made me jump. noise they make is just so screechy. It's almost like Judge Doom from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I kind of like the effect they use in this room. Like, when you look at the sand, you can see, like, the reflection of the water ripples. I thought that was really cool. Yeah, like, these visuals are really ahead of their time for the time being when this game was made. It was just so uncommon to see graphics like this on an N64. This part of the game was kind of annoying, where you had to protect a photographer who was trying to take pictures of these images on the side of the buildings. It was real easy to mess up during this part, and then you'd have to start all over if you did. Another thing I love about, like, the water effect in this game is how it actually, like, bounces up and down as if there's an actual, like, wave current. I don't recall any other video game really doing that at the time. Here we get to one of the most unique versions of Wumbo's Wigwam in this game, and that is where you turn into a submarine. So unlike other levels, this one, her wigwam is kind of like partially underwater, which makes it a little well, it makes it a little tricky, like when trying to exit the place. Like after you transform, it's easy to accidentally swim back into the pool. So I think one thing they should do is, I think it'd be funny if in a remake what they should do is they should have the wigwam entirely underwater, and then it's like when you enter, you see Humba like in a diving suit or something. That'd be kind of funny. Yeah, I just think that would help make it easier to swim around without accidentally falling into that pool again. Yeah, submarine is also one of my favorite transformations in this game, along with the van from Witchy World. This one just gives you unlimited torpedoes, and it's also the only transformation in the game that can be optional for fighting the boss fight in this game, Nordfloo's Backpack, the anglerfish. And I thought that was really cool how you could actually fight him in this form. Most every boss fight in this game requires Banjo and Kazooie, and it won't let you enter the place unless you are Banjo and Kazooie. So surprisingly, the submarine can also use the warp ability, the warp pad, I mean. I like how this place right here, this is like the entrance to the boss fight, but there's also a lot of Easter eggs to other rare employees in the form of these lockers. Then I like how the boss is hidden, the one that said D. Jones, for Davy Jones, obviously. Davy Jones locker. Let's see, Grant Kirkhope, Kay Connell, I think, wasn't that the voice of Barry from Conker? Let's see, Chris Sutherland. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Chris Sutherland, he was the voice of Banjo and Kazooie. I like how even after beating Lord Wu Fak Fak, he's still alive, and he'll still have a bit of dialogue, like if you revisit him. Most of the bosses in this game, when you defeat them, they're dead. It's like they disappear. And so Lord Wu Fak Fak and Weldar are some of the only ones that you can go back to and actually have talk to you still. But then there's also one who I like how there's at least like one boss in this game who actually wasn't so bad after all, and that was Terry from Terrydactyl Land, the next level we're going to visit. It's like when you fought that character, it was a misunderstanding. After you defeat it, it gives up, and suddenly it's not a villain anymore. It just wants you to help it, and so I find it funny how like Terry is like the only boss who really wasn't a bad guy per se. It was just an overprotective parent. So one thing that's funny is how it's actually possible to get out of the water. You won't be able to get very far though, but it's really funny though to see that you driving around the submarine up on the surface. You'll see what I mean. Like somehow he can go up the slopes, but he can't go up the steps. I just thought that was really funny that you can do that. I think like Rare kept this in mind. It's like they made these slopes on purpose, so if players accidentally got stuck in a place, they'd be able to get out. You'll see what I mean eventually, but look at the mess door. What the heck? How did that break? Yeah, it's almost like Rare figured that some players would try to drop down over here, so they had to make this ramp in order to get out for the submarine. That's kind of funny. Ah! Die, you three-armed mutant. These mermaid statues, they almost look like the mermaid from Donkey Kong 64 in the Gloomy Galleon level. Let's see, there's just one last area to explore in this game, level I mean, and that's the big fish. Like, this is a very bizarre part of the game. But I must have, like, it's gross, but at the same time, it's amazing. Like, it makes you wonder, like, how did they make it? It's just unlike anything you've seen in a video game at this time. I mean, yeah, we had, like, the inside of Lord Jabu Jabu's stomach from The Legend of Zelda, but I don't recall it having so many, like, so many bouncy physics from, like, the inside. You'll see what I mean. It's crazy. I don't know what they did here, but it's quite impressive. And you can actually see the walls, they look like they're breathing. The way they suck in and out. And then, like, almost every surface here has, like, some kind of bouncy physics. When you step or jump or pound on it, it's really crazy. Even the walls. The walls themselves even do it. It's crazy. I mean, we already saw something like this in the crazy bounce castle in Witchy World, but man, that only worked for the floor. Here, it actually works for every surface. It's crazy. That fish is going to be feeling sore later. So now let's head to the dinosaur-themed level, Terrydactyl Land. Now I remember, like, before I first played this game, this is the level I was most hyped for, from looking at, like, magazine scans, screenshots online, and even, the official guidebook before actually, getting the game when it came out. And although, like, I don't know, like, I felt kind of underwhelmed by this level. Like, I think the music track in this level is the worst in the game. And I don't know, like, I was really psyched for, like, a level with dinosaurs, because as a kid, I loved dinosaurs, but, I don't know, I just felt like there wasn't that much to this. I will admit, though, like, it does a better job at being a dinosaur level compared to, the one, like, in Conker's Bad Fur Day, where there were barely any dinosaurs to interact with, despite being a prehistoric themed level. And so at least this one did a better job. I mean, you'll see Stegosaurus enemies, you'll see Pterodactyls, Triceratops, T-Rex, some kind of, like, one of those aquatic Brontosaurus, like, I'm not sure what they're called, but so yeah, like, this one at least has more variety to it, but I don't know, most of the level is just a bunch of dry looking rocks. That's dirt and dry rocks. That's almost like all that this level is. Few water areas too, but so I'm sure a lot of you already know, but there is something very inappropriate about the shape of the entrance to Mumbo's hut, and it's more visible if you see it from an aerial view, and heck, what I'm standing on is technically suggestive, but I'm sure a lot of you already know. If you don't, just look it up. Pretty much just type in Banjo Tooie, Terrydactyl Land, suggestive, or something like that, you know, inappropriate, and you'll probably see what I mean. But I remember there was like a pretty good video that a YouTuber made, Thumbs Up Master I think was their name, and they did like a really interesting video series called Banjo Rated E ? And he went through and showed like all the possible inappropriate references that you could find in the Banjo games, and this was like the biggest highlight in that. This is definitely the most inappropriate thing they hid in the game. So this one also has a unique version for Wumbo's Wigwam, where you actually have two transformations in this level. So the first one is a baby T-Rex. It's mainly just used to open like secret passages. Unfortunately, he cannot attack or anything. But if you go up to one of the Stegosaurus NPCs at first, he'll teach you how to properly roar, which is needed to open certain passageways that only the dinosaur can get through, using like certain roar codes. Like instead of a Morse code, you use roar codes. But, so then eventually you get Mumbo Jumbo, who has the spell to make everything bigger, and so if you use that on Wumbo's Wigwam, it'll allow Banjo to turn into a big daddy T-Rex. I'd say like the dinosaur is one of the most detailed looking transformations. There's something about like its detail that looks more detailed than the other things you find. So I'll have to come back later for the daddy T-Rex. Yeah, this is crazy. So they actually made an enemy out of like the little honeycomb holders, and these have like red demonic eyes. Crazy. They'll run at you. I remember they did something similar in the first Banjo-Kazooie. They eventually made one that was more hostile, and that was because it was surrounded by bees that would attack you if you got near it. The only way to break it open would be to use your gold feathers and fend off all the bees, but it usually wasn't worth it though, because it meant using up a lot of your limited gold feathers. But so in this game they had it where it was possible to beat it just by attacking it, but you know, it's like it'll throw you off guard the first time, but it's actually much easier to defeat. Just hit it once and it's dead. So it's interesting how like this room I'm in right now is actually an entrance to Mayan Temple, the first level in the game. And so it was really funny how like there's one point in the game where you had to like steal back an artifact that some caveman stole, and when you do that, there's no way to actually leave this area into the actual Terrydactyl Land. So At first I thought this was just part of the Mayan temple level, but then when you go into this level and you're like, wait, this looks familiar. Then you see a gate. You can then have a gateway that will properly lead you to Mayan temple from here. Then, and I just thought that was kind of cool. It's like, oh, I had no idea. This is part of the same. Well, this is part of a different level. That's cool. That's what I like about Banjo Tooie. How so many of the levels are connected to each other. It really makes it feel like Banjo Kazooie are really exploring an actual world, instead of like just going through magical portals that take them to like a land that really makes no sense. I never really understood why there were so many levels that were inside Gruntilda's lair. I mean, you had like a peaceful little Christmas village, you had like a Click Clock Wood, you know, like a giant forest, and I mean, some of them made sense for Gruntilda's lair, like Mad Monster Mansion. Yeah, I can see that place belonged to Gruntilda. But then you got like places like Rusty Bucket Bay. It's like, why is there a huge giant like cruise ship inside of Gruntilda's lair? It makes no sense. But so that's one thing I like about Banjo Tooie. Although the levels aren't as memorable as Banjo Kazooie, I think they make more sense in the world they belong to. Hey, I found Omanite. See, if I remember, this was where you learned Banjo's taxi pack ability, where he can carry certain characters in his backpack for transportation. I know, it sounds pretty morbid if you think about it. This part is always tricky. Yeah, the Terrydactyls are some of the peskiest enemies in this game. It's still falling. I don't know why, but I remember as a kid I had a lot of trouble getting past this part, and it was mostly because of the Terrydactyl. I kept being more cautious during this part, and so I was taking up too much time to the point where both the flames and the Terrydactyl would keep respawning, and so I'd keep like falling off and dying somehow. But it's like, I don't know why I had so much trouble back then. I'm a lot better at it now, but there are some parts like in video games where even as an adult it's still as hard as it was, and then there are some parts where it's like, why did I have so much trouble doing this as a kid? Oh man, the Stumponodons area. Oh boy. I remember once I had like a friend over, and you know, it's like I was showing them this game, and I told them like, oh, watch this, and I remember like this part kind of freaked them out. They were not expecting what came up, and it's kind of funny. But I find it funny how if you look up to try to see what it looks like, you won't find anything. It just makes it even creepier. It's like, how big is this thing? It's... Can't even see the rest of its body. So like one challenge in this game is getting past this entire area, and there are different ways to do it. So there are 3 different challenges that require you to get across as Banjo, Kazooie, and both of them together. And so for Banjo Kazooie, the only way to get across is to use the gold feathers sparingly. That's the only way to protect you from the stomp. For Kazooie, she's one of the trickier ones. She has no way of protecting herself, but she's the fastest. So the best thing you can do is just make a run for it and try to outmaneuver the T-Rex while hiding in the holes of the footprints as much as you can. And so Banjo, his requires like a later ability in the game that allows him to heal himself after getting hurt. So basically with Banjo, what you're supposed to do is let the T-Rex stomp on you, hide inside one of his footprints, and then use his sleeping ability to recover your health, and then try again. And so yeah, it's the most time consuming. It's one that a lot of people had trouble figuring out without looking up through a guide, but... And then here's the top of the mountain where you'll find Terry. Originally he was the boss of this game, but then afterwards Banjo, Kazooie, and Terry make amends, and you try to help him find his missing babies. I always found it kind of shocking that I believe Terry is a male. I was thinking he was supposed to be a mother or something, but I could have sworn they referred that he's a guy. So it's just kind of strange. Usually when you think of like a bird looking after their babies, it's always a mama in like a cartoon or video game, and so it's kind of funny how, oh, in this case it's the daddy. Kazooie? Not nice. Dragon Kazooie almost looks like a pterodactyl. I remember like when I first saw a screenshot of this part of the game, I was actually really psyched. I thought, like, I remember thinking this looks like a boss battle, but in the end it just turned out to be like the little intro cutscene for a mini game. But like, I remember like seeing a screenshot of like a Banjo coming face to face with that creature that just ate me, and I thought that looked like an epic boss fight, but unfortunately that was not a boss fight. It's just the entrance to a mini game where you have to help him destroy some germs, and then he'll let you live if you help clean his stomach, basically. And afterwards you can just explore a little bit. There's not really much doing here though, but still kind of has like a cool, weird, gross effect. Like, even the boss battle music plays like when you first encounter this creature, so I thought that was... Well, yeah, Terrydactyl does that quite a bit. Even did it like when you were first introduced to the Stomponodon. played like the boss battle music and even gave them like a boss intro, but you don't fight them at all, strangely enough. There's only one level in this game that officially has 2 bosses, and that's Hailfire Peaks, which will be the next level I'll be going to, but that will be in the next video I make. But unfortunately, you have to complete both of those boss battles in order to get a Jiggy, so you don't get a Jiggy for each of them. You have to beat them both in order to get it. But I like the bosses in Hailfire Peaks. They're basically the same thing, one harder than the other, but you just fought like 2 elemental dragons, one ice dragon, one fire dragon. I remember that was also used for like the promo screenshots of this game originally, in a Nintendo Power magazine, and I was really hyped to see Banjo actually fight like 2 giant dragons. I thought it was really cool. Here was another promo screenshot. I remember one of the early screenshots showed Banjo up against the giant llama Triceratops, and I just thought, like, wow, this game looks like it's gonna be huge. That's one thing I liked about this game, though. Like, it took Banjo-Kazooie into very new territories. It's like the first game was a little more cartoony, and then this one had them in like grittier-looking surroundings. They were coming face to face with like more threatening-looking creatures compared to like the silly creatures they met in the first game. Okay. I'll admit, like, this part was kind of underwhelming, though. It's like, yeah, like, this was a really lengthy part in trying to help the Triceratops kids, and then after all that, you just get one Jiggy. But I like how the game actually joked about that. Like, Kazooie was just as frustrated as the players were, that's all you got after going through this lengthy mission. Rare really loved to troll their audiences. How in the heck was this Triceratops able to fit in this place? Jeez. Well, that kid's gonna grow up to be a serial killer. Aren't these things supposed to be herbivores? So finally, we are going to witness the Daddy T-Rex. Now, if they ever remade this game, please give us an option to skip these sequences, or at least shorten them. Ugh, it gets so annoying. Funny thing is, not only does this make the place bigger, but it even made Humba bigger. Screw you! Now, Daddy T-Rex, it's a really cool transformation, but it's so underwhelming how all it's really used for is just to activate a big switch that is too heavy for Banjo-Kazooie to trigger alone. So, you just gotta use the Daddy T-Rex to do it, and then you gotta, it opens a little gate that had a Jinjo in it, then you gotta quickly rush back here, turn back into Banjo-Kazooie, and rush over and get the Jinjo before the gate closes. That's all the Daddy T-Rex is used for. I do like how overpowered he is, though. He can kill enemies without even touching them. All he has to do is roar next to them, and they'll just die. It's crazy. I just wish there was more he could do with this thing. I remember, originally I was like, oh, I'd wonder what happened if I took him to the Stomponodon's plains, but then, unfortunately, there's no way to get there. And he cannot use the warp pad. It's just like the excuse for why Ridley wasn't in any past Super Smash Bros. Games before Ultimate. He's just too big. Well, that's all I have to show for now. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Goodbye.